Hello, welcome to the final analysis. Well, it'll be the last one for the series of books, but as mentioned numerous times, I'll either be creating a new story or expanding from this one, but it's the latter which seems to be the more likely case. And also, as I'm in a different location once again, there might be noises and interruptions on the way, but regardless, we'll get through this nice and smoothly. So, yeah, let's get into it. And so, poster-wise, I tend to say this is my favourite poster. And I have made posters before, almost like draft ones for when it came to earlier stages of the series, and this was one idea which was carried through. Like there used to be 7 books or 7 series, but it did shrink down into 5. And yes, that did mean more elements before elements did convert. Like for instance, fire and water and ice were separate, but I did put them together to represent temperature, which definitely makes it more unique compared to making every power fire, ice, and water all separately. Or you get almost like because Avatar: The Last Airbender definitely embodies, how each type of element is utilised, like the most basic type of elements. And you have other stories which have their own spin on it, and this is how I really do mine. And so, yeah, pretty neat visual of Zemi and Seinfeld, the protagonist and the villain, finally going at each other, which is probably quite exciting considering we've never seen these or many of these characters together, and so it'll be interesting to see how they like share screen time with one another. And you can see all of the remaining members are silhouettes. So you have the likes of Zemi with electricity, Nicole on the gun, Pod who has power on his own. That's Vondor, and Hairwolf I think should have been a bit smaller. But anyway, she's in Earth 4. That's Dion, that's the new character, and that's the Pathos. And yeah, this is nice textured ground, which yeah, I think should have been. Yeah, I think we can all agree, like nearly everything should be more detailed in this manner. Because this is almost like the best looking design part of the 5 books, and not to mention the whole use of grey and this Shrek skin color. um, yeah, definitely not prominent in the story. It's almost like there is some instances, but it should have been done more considering how book 1 and book 3 definitely embody the lime green and then the jade green in it more. It's just like representing the element which is playing a part of. Yeah, I've already mentioned that before. Yeah, so yeah, repetition. I'll try not to get into that either. Even this sky has clouds as well. It is unknown what kind of land it is. You probably would have. It could be like Force land, but as you'll see later, that's not the case. So yeah, just the brand new planet, I guess. Probably could add that to the guide. Right. Yeah, definitely the final for these characters, and let's get to what the story has. So we have a nice beginning to the story. So yeah, I think you already get a taster of what the characters' routines are like as what their main routines were before all of this madness happens. That you can sort of see later on in the story. I think there was a deleted scene of seeing a majority of the characters at their current status quo before seeing them, to which I think could be better. But it's just the number of pages. As you can see, I'm definitely trying to make all of them 36 pages. Although the problem is with this one, this story feels quite short because most of the good few pages are dedicated to the final battle, which isn't a bad thing, but just compared to other final battles where they have a certain number of pages, because book 1 and 2 have like a good few, but then 3 and 4 ranks it up a bit, and I think number 5 takes it a whole new level. So yeah, just an interesting thing there. So yeah, I think yeah, it's an improvement. I guess we could have seen what the characters were like beforehand, because like this is already the inciting incident, you could call it, where the trouble makes a proper turn for what the status quo was. And although you could argue that this is what status quo is at the moment, as I was finally gone out, and oh yeah, there was even a deleted scene in book 4 where you do see them going out and Zyvor's finally accepted, to stop staying in the fortress and do something, because what you see now is the rest of the villains. So yeah, they're in a puddle as well, like the Legion is, although with them they're at least getting more of an advantage. This is Forza, the first element, what he probably would have got first if it wasn't for Ozona wanted to keep it, or if yeah, I think in all reality, I think he would have got this first already. And yeah, I say I've most of these guys missing their weapons. Yeah, that's a bit of a shame. Even the statues are, and they don't look dead, but even then, yeah, I can't have gold in the story. And you can see that this is the statue's vault, which is broken, and you could presume that all of the defences have been knocked away as well. And even statues are probably extinct as well. These are a race that's taken part in the elemental wave, so yeah, can see why they would get rid of them. And yeah, they're just on the lookout, and these two are very happy that Designforce make his first step. And yeah, I think it'll be interesting start. Then they lot together have got sorted out one plan, so got an element already. You could argue, why not do this first? But if you remember from book 4, Zine 4 is badly hurt, so he was trying to avoid that trouble before, but that ended up coming to him in book 4. So he still has good alliance, and he is still well skilled and well armored. But even then, it would make the use of the elements a tad limited. To which I guess it's almost the reason why, not a spoiler, but and I do try and see how these elements can be utilized, but they're definitely not as over the top as I think not only as over the top as I wanted to, but you could argue that Zine 4 is trying to be careful with the use of the elements because otherwise it will because it would start affecting him anyway. To which that is a idea that solely didn't get come about due to time. Both like I guess no spoiler, you do see Zine 4's father later. He comes back after seeing him once in book 3, and you have Zine 4 not only with other injuries, but even he would still get effects from the elements, and it's just because it's what happens for when using the elements without the machine, because the machine is meant to fully implement them, and therefore the healing and injuries would definitely go then. So yeah, this is Forza with the lightning, and that's like sound or force, to which that's what this element represents. Yeah, definitely the most original form, you could say. Anyway, let's get going. So as I say I forgot my laser. I've just been pointing at all sorts, but at least the previous image was easy. But yeah, like when it comes to worlds being a bit, just an aftermath of a fight or whatever, this is definitely the best representation compared to other books. This looks better than Earth because it's hardly anyone around, cracks, broken windows. This vehicle's probably abandoned as well. So yeah, this like many other planets would be greatly affected. And then, oh yeah, all of this time when I mentioned, there was another little dude who used to be part of the Legion when it comes to planning the story. Well, here he is. Well, he's about 5 times smaller, but even then, it's nice to reuse him. And in this case, I think I've had some ideas of Kyle. No, God, I keep making that mistake. Of Zami solving a crime, and then hearing words of rumours about Design Force still going out and about. So Design Force still being around is confirmed to be true. But in this case, instead, it's a blend of both, where he's actively being attacked, and you're like, he's still alive, and so that's where Zami's into action. He could say, well, why didn't, Pod wasn't convincing, goes after Zine 4, why not the others? And I think the Legion being banned is one thing, Nicole not being allowed to be a captain is another. And I think he could, I think now Zami probably knows he will definitely act that, he acts on it anyway, but maybe it's like a side goal. Maybe he's trying to hear for rumours or signs that Zine 4's still around, and this is like his first indicator. Yeah, once again, that is bad headcanon for me. But yeah, sorry, just losing my train of thought once again. So yeah, I think that yeah seems to be the best reason, but once again, it just could have done with being more implemented. And also this ship, I remember like my Instagram where the automaton was inspired by another ship. This one is not on my Instagram. I'm not sure if it is or not, but I did create another cool ship, and I carried over the design here, but with much different colours. And yeah, this is a new area of the issue as well. And not to mention, I think this was a holiday photo of mine, probably from this year. Yeah, definitely nice area. Definitely had its harbour and stuff. So yeah, with that happening, Zami's now going to be more on it with the Legion and Cyber, etc. So yeah, let's move on. Oh yeah, I said before I go, yeah, Spiker did have he's had a few colour changes, but I think this has been his final colours for quite some time. But anyway, let's get going. So yeah, this is definitely the scene where everyone's getting on it, and as you can imagine, Nicole would have had a deleted scene where she's being bossed around by Retron, and she solves some crime, but it's not making her happy because it's very little impact towards history, especially in a dire situation like this. But now Zami's coming along illegally, arriving to Earth. It's like, Life was actually on it and stuff, and so that's where they both act to either. Well, firstly, there's the trying to get the Legion members previously established and grouping them all together. And then you have the Titans seeing if they have any spare members they can offer. And as you find out later, they only have one ready. And there's also actually, no, I think I'll save that for later on, it's no biggie, it's another idea. But yeah, this is a planet area on Earth, definitely away for witnesses, so that's why they can get away with it. And them two did catch up as well. Once again, that was a deleted scene, but you can imagine that happening, asking how each other is, but at the same time, like, yeah, let's just get on to solving this new danger. And also, this is the only time space has been drawn without images to help. um, yeah, alright, and I don't think this is the communication spell. I think that's a old idea that stuck. Because if you remember in a previous commentary, the Legion were all given a devices called clapters, which is mainly for contact. And it looks like one of the Legion members gave the Titarons some way of contact. Maybe, but despite the Legion being illegal, I guess we need to keep more an eye on Site 4, or maybe updates. Even updates that Earth is in trouble again. Could at least be handy for that. And I guess it also symbolises how them not they do well to communicate, but I think from Mechador's events and even Torrid, most of the satellites will be down, and most of the races have probably given up on being hopeful, and so yeah, disregard the likes of contact, etc., to other other races and stuff. So yeah, just giving up on that era that was once good and still can be good. Yeah, let's move on. Oh, although I say these are speech bubbles for phone calls. A bit angular, I don't know why. Yeah, it's a bit funny actually, looking at it. Yeah, and then let's move on. Okay, so now we have one of these scenes where it's almost like a first introduction between a good guy and the ultimate villain. One of the good guys anyway. And yeah, just trying to face a villain alone, and it ends up being bad with a good guy. That kind of scene has a name or something, but yes, it's a similar scenario here, and yeah, you can see Pod and Design 4 on similar power levels, although even then Design 4 not only is much older, but probably far more experience. And yeah, just seeing the blue outline with the ice here. That the ice has never had that dark blue outline, so that's a tad off. That's meant to be like an ice blade to it, Design 4 dodge as well, and is about to zap Pod. Yeah, this is still on the statue planet, because afterwards Vata has come along, and just complicated everything. Design 4 would have been like, hey, where you all this time? But as said here, Vata was finding signs for the elements of Design 4 once he had to evacuate from his planet quickly, as it was get destroyed in the aftermath of the elemental wave. I'm not sure if the book stated it, but it's just after the machine was stopped, that's where all the elements started damaging the entire world, and certain races did, get hold of certain elements, like such as Dion dropping off the Viber to the Tengers. You have Toru taking Himota, the Titan's taking Living Goal, and Ozona taking Forza. I think that's said in the book, but there you go. And yeah, I think a bit of a pet peeve for me is, Vata is darker compared to Seinfeld, but I think we can all agree that this difference should have been far more greater. Like the element injuries, having like glowing cracks on him or something, or even making his suit black. I think, yeah, something like that. I think could have been really cool. So yeah, oh well. Yeah, let's go on to the next scene. I say before talking about this one, I guess one more thing to say is that if you're wondering, well, Pod's finally sorted out Mecha Jaw, what does that mean? Well, actually, no, it's obvious that Xyphor is definitely the opposite of peace in the grander scheme of things, and so yeah, Pod will definitely be wanting to take down Xyphor, even if Mechadraw was like the ultimate nemesis. That's like an interesting, like not trope, but sometimes in stories you do have characters who do have an arch enemy, but it isn't like the main villain, and so they go against one villain, and they're like, yeah, this is like the ultimate threat that's taken down. So it's just an interesting thing. And yeah, you have no laser again. Have I forgotten to use it in the previous state as well? Oh, the second time it's happened in the entire series. Anyway, yes, so they tried to get Retron's help. The president is aware of this. There was a version of the story where the president was seen afterwards, and he was like, "Oh, Retron's willing to help. Okay, well, you lot go ahead because if Sign for it is true to still be out there, then yeah, might as well go ahead before the things get worse." And yeah, I think things will either get worse or better, but regardless, the Legion will at least do something about it. And there was there was one character, another character called Luke, who was basically a human who was more evolved, meaning he was like stronger and faster. And he even had a couple of gadgets to assist him, like a bike, because that was his costume was a bike suit. And yeah, he comes to help. He was to be Retron's son as well, funnily enough, and because of how advanced he is, Retron rejected him. And so yeah, it just although you can imagine why he's cut out because in fact yeah, Nicole has also planned to have a exosuit too. Enhancer, and while maybe a costume does that, and even if the servicemen possess that, which could still be true, I think the whole idea of Luke being an enhanced human almost, or him doing their best compared, despite what they're facing, that's something Nicole embodies. And when looking at the grand scheme of the story, Luke didn't really fit in the end. It was adding fat to both book 3 and book 4. Actually, I don't know about book 4, but book 3 had like its own subplot where the Legion were, split, like sorting out elements or Luke, but might as well send them over to the element quest and sorting out Torrid. And even in book 2, Luke was actually yeah, Luke fought the Legion before walling the base, so they had to have like a bit of trouble before walling the base, which doesn't play well. And even another situation where they find Luke and then find Hail Wolfie, which is also kind of jarring. So yeah, it was cool at first, but I think over time, you can see why. Sometimes removing a character, it definitely makes the story flow better. And I know the story isn't perfect, but you can definitely see how removing that character definitely makes everything far neater. And yeah, once again, as we saw prior, Retron's still capable of fighting, and he probably was trying to use his crutch as well. But yeah, I think depending on what your injury is like, sometimes you can either I think when it comes to long-term tasks like walking, that's where you tend to rely on it. But if it's more stationary actions, like I know fighting isn't the most stationary thing, but I think that's something he can handle. Maybe if he's put himself light on his feet, maybe it's something that he could do in the long term. Yeah, I think that's the case. Because if Heather was, I think that still could be true. Could have like mechanical legs instead, and he uses this as support, which still could be true. But it was previously planned that all of his joints were metal at a point, which is the head and torso, which I think doing that probably would have made it far worse for him, and I kind of wish I did that. But like I said, even the eye and the crutch on the surface does well enough, but by saying information about the extra prosthetics he's requiring, like such as metallic legs that have been hidden by his trousers, yeah, I think that's a definitely worthwhile theory. It definitely adds to his motive to patent aliens from what they have done to him. And so you have Azami fighting off servicemen in the background. That's always been his role during the planning stage. And yeah, they don't get servicemen in the end. That's also been another plan to get hold of some servicemen to have them help. But oh damn, I think if I forgot to write that in as well. Oh no. Anyway, well, I think from this, you could imagine that Retron is in control at a point where, despite the limited control, still has to control the servicemen, and they're still not happy with the Legion. But there has been plenty of cases where like some of the servicemen come with them and they do all die from the task in the end. Although I think even then that's yeah, I think that's adding too much to the story. And as you can tell in the writing, after Retron losing this fight, it's only indicated to him that can't be a top anymore. Must leave it to the next generation, the aliens and the Indian and that whole community. That's what does it best for everyone. And his ideas, can no longer work, especially what happened in book 4. And so when losing, it's almost like a realization because it's almost like he thinks he could like take on anything, but after losing to Nicole and probably with the help of Sammy later on, yeah, I think that's where he finally gets the idea. So he has a bit of a like a minor redemption, especially later on, but it's not massive because of a lot of the wrongdoings he's done before. So it's just enough to give him a sense of purpose again, which is yeah, I think it's nice for him. I think. Yeah, let's move on. Okay, so almost like the case with, I think like the further you go on, the more A plot, B plot kind of stories occur because like at first you have like the villain and heroes doing the thing, but as time more goes on, like more of the characters have more of their own things to do. And in this case, well, in book 4 you had Pod having his own plot. Book 3, Dion's plot was very small, and I guess you could say the same with the prior two books as well. But in here, this is where it gets really distinct. So you now have Zami's team, Zymfor's team, and I have Dion's team. And before you're like, wait, hang on, did the Legion not divided? Well, only for now, and it's just only for Dion to gather the Legion members. And by having a second team, that it does become handy for later on, as you'll see why. But anyway, I say one thing I wasn't so keen on is that it says that Pasnos is washed up, but he looks a bit happy then. But in actuality, he would be pleased to see the Hail Wolf, or at least, maybe it could be still quite be exciting, for a mission like this. but he's lost his mojo fighting. So I think the first remains true, but even then there's been 2 deleted scenes. One of them was Pasnos really being brought down after losing a gambling game. He was getting attacked, and then Dion was like, "Yo, gambling first, and don't attack a Pasnos. I need him." And so that's where both get going. And it's also, is it the comic? Yeah, if Rod had to use his caravan, then yes, you can imagine Pasnos carried on using the comet front, and that's what is to be used because Dion can't fly a Pasnos and other beings around because only Dion can breathe in space. And so yeah, I think that's definitely going to be their vehicle. And so yeah, they got hold of a Pasnos and now they're going to Hellwolf, and you can see, I don't know what they're doing there. Probably, I wouldn't say practice fighting. I think they're just playing. But they're grown adults. I don't know. Or maybe they're like, hey, maybe let's go swim in this pool and get all excited. Who knows? Or it could be like a bachelor party. I don't know. But yeah, this is just like another area of the planet which is kind of nice, despite missing the Northern Lights. Although I do like these 2 expressions. He's been like, it is nice to meet you, but we need your help. And she's like, oh, I don't know. It's almost like she's looking back on a race. She's been away from them far too long. They've had all of this trouble with Taurus planet and Mechador's planet. And I kind of wish there was coverage from these 2 on what they've thought of it. I don't think even that was a planned thing in the first place. Sorry if I've mumbled. I can't do any more mumbling with this, definitely not, because with how PowerPoint works, it might get a bit weak. But anyway, although as characters that have a small role despite adding to the numbers, like these 2 almost share an arc of just having to get just get themselves up because more stepping up more, like because you have the Plasmos who's lost his mojo to fight, and you have Haywolf who's afraid to leave a race. And this goes to the theme of this story where it's putting your needs of others before your own intentions. And while the Legion that have stopped threats and saved people, but as you would have seen later on, they've all beforehand they've been more into their goals. And you can also see, like with the Legion being split off, they've been acting on their goals, and that's what they tend to have prioritized before saying, hey, like the people are the more important aspect, which kind of makes them proper heroes by the end of the story. And not only does Book 5 has the most complicated theme, but I think Book 5 has probably the best theme as well, because of how complicated and interpretable it is. And so with Pastos and Hill's problems, that does result in a couple of negative things down the line. Not story problems, as in how their character decisions affect certain outcomes of the story, which you'll see later on. I think that's all I have to say about this one. Anyway, let's go. I say something, as you would have noticed, when it comes to open mouths, I tend to colour them black, but with Dion here, I've just accidentally missed that, which is a tad unfortunate, but oh well. And also this would have been another delete. Well, actually, I didn't get to explain. You deleted the scene where these. So Dion's the one piloting, and he. I guess he's a robot, and I have planned for him to be analytical, and I can see that with how well he fights and stuff. But and also the niche bots as well. But even then, that should have been back to with writing as well. But he pilots while these 2 have a chat because they've never met before. That's what is the most exciting about this book, is that there will be characters never seen each other before. Even Hailwolf has never met Titarans, and as you see later, none of them have met Morphils. Well, a good portion of them haven't met Morphils either. So yeah, I think that's definitely a real glowing part of this particular book. But anyway, so the other deleted scenes, so as well as them 2 chatting, there's an instance of Potter being found. He was left on the statue planet, probably badly beaten. But thanks to this massive jump cut I made, you can assume that Hailwolf has been persuaded in the end. They got hold of Pod. He's been healed, which the story, healed. Yeah, it says there actually. And as we know, Titrans can heal. And another nice part is, with the defending the Socha planet, they're like, oh, let's use that knowledge to defend Livingor here, because thanks to communication earlier, we would have seen that Xyphel's definitely on the move to getting these elements, well, either him or his allies, whatever remains. Because I think maybe Dion might have said at one point, oh hey ho, Dion's allies, they've been reducing over time thanks to everyone's help, and yeah, you can see that kind of conversation happened, but Xyphal still has some allies left, even if they're at a low number, which kind of makes it interesting. It's more of a balanced team between the bad guys and the good guys, even though the bad guys seem to have an advantage with the elements. And I guess something I probably would have liked to see, maybe the Legion could have found ways to, expose the elements at that point where it takes down the bad guys in some way, a bit like Orpheon. But I think that kind of exposure, I think that could have fired back actually. So I think it is sensible just to keep it nice and encased and hidden and protected, because most of these guys have element to those abilities anyway. Funny enough, even, sorry for on the left of your earphone, sorry, I was just reaching something. So you have 1, 2, and 3, like these characters all share traits of living gore abilities or life force abilities. And but yeah, I think just going back to like the Titran healing and the defense being then the defense phase that's been set up earlier, because I think I've said this before, where even if like the final chapter has like its new aspects, it still needs to use what is set up and help round everything up. And I think this is some of the best cases of doing that, alongside other bits and bobs as well. And while and you can see later that Pod's like, oh hey, you lot, I haven't seen you in some time. Yeah, I think that would definitely be the case later on, and you can probably see him trying to get his bearings after being sorry, against just bad education. It is after a brutal battle, and you can assume that's done all sorts of a fighting on the way. But even then, I think that's what source material the spin-offs can do. So, and yeah, I don't know which Titran this is, unless it's Carpe and Vondel without the markings. Oh, it's another Titran being like, hey, get like the defences sorted. And even Hailwolf would be new to this, and Jon would be probably she's probably saw the Legion doing defences all the time, or at least decent strategies. And before I move on, if you're wondering, wait, hang on, if did they all not see Zynfall making a move already? And that is because, as said in book page 2, I think of this book, Moloch has been cloaking everyone, to which, yeah, I guess, well, yeah, why didn't Moloch do it for the lot? Because it, unless it's like the satellites, oh, I don't know. Would energy overcook? No, it's energy definitely beats technology often in this universe. Even Dion gets weakened by it. Yeah, I think Moloch should have cloaked all of the allies if they were taken down one by Dion. Although maybe Moloch's like cloaking only them lot because it's a small group. Once again, should have been back to bar writing. But regardless, they've been well hidden at a point where I think even then they would still be well hidden. They don't know where they are. But once again, writing should have had that up. And also, apologies, like these pages are, the commentating of these pages are definitely getting longer now. Although even then it's nearly the end of the story, so I can see why that's happening. And especially book 1 as well, with how much it's introducing. Yeah, let's move on. I'm not sure if I said this about book 1, but between book 1 and book 5, you can definitely tell the difference of how much is going on. And yeah, that's just a really wise story decision. Definitely keep everything nice and simple, just like the main foundations, and then move on. Because in the first book, you're introduced to the main members, the main world of the story. What kind of missions the Legion will do. What will their obstacles be? As they have conflict with one another, and you have hints of, no, or more like hints of the elements as well. So you can tell, once again, it is a flawed story, but I think book 1 definitely does that, setting up part well. And also 2 visual mistakes. Those shoes are meant to be black, and I think the outline in here is too thick here compared to the others. And also, yeah, why didn't we get more of this grass in other areas? It's a bit unfortunate. But and also, yeah, this is if you remember, this is where Living Gore was previously held at, because this also answers the question, what happened to Himota after book 3? Well, here's your answer. Yeah, I guess I think book 3 would have had to lead to scene of Pod dropping this off before leaving, but I think this is like one of those cases of a following story fixing the previous one. They're plot thing, not the best method, because normally you need to fix your problems from the get-go, or at least not have them exist. But as long as they're accounted for in the same story, in the same medium, then there you go. I think, yeah, that's definitely fine, like a decent last resort. So your living gore used to be there, and you probably could tell with the nice vegetation. And I think I've had this other idea of, because Himota was there, that everything would be all in blocks instead. But I think that would overcomplicate everything. Not to mention, I think Himota might be placed in the living gore machine as a swap. But no, I think the Titrans would have got hold of that in book 3. So maybe it's like maybe Zami came up with something to absorb it. Definitely like a better living gore machine. But once again, we don't see that machine. And, that should have been a line. That's just a strong assumption. But if they do know where it is, then yeah, I think that does show signs that they are aware of where it is. And also, let's talk about our new face. So I do have a superb poster of, it's not in the public yet. I'll post it on Instagram one day, but it may be outdated for a couple of reasons. But it does show some of these characters in not only far greater detail, but even he had a Triceratops head initially, and definitely more clothing. But I did struggle to, drawing that Triceratops head was quite tricky. So I just went for a simpler design instead. And as you see later, it's the type of creature that his mouth and eye is one thing, and it can swap between the two. And yeah, and with the colours and everything, yeah, I do quite like him, even if his all of his species share the same clothing, which is kind of funny. But as you know, he has his suit, he has his clothing, which he can summon, by the way. And this is her soldier gear, which does have some level of armor. And yeah, you could say it's a tad convenient that, because as I said in the story, it's a type of species which is immediately mature, and being able to summon their own tools, which fills a lot of gaps. Like if the Titans are reclaiming races, then surely would be a baby with no clothing or anything. It would have to be given all sorts. And I guess that's another stretch as well. Like if the Titans would bring back races from extinction, they would have to place them in the world and probably parent them for a bit until the population becomes far more bigger and vast. But yeah, I think that's a massive stretch which isn't so relevant to this story. You can assume that's what the Titans will be doing now. I guess, spoiler, everything becomes perfect almost. You could guess, maybe the Legion are faulty at a point where they're all blues in the end. Nightfall does reach its goal, and it's interesting that there would be, and a really cool alternate reality. But as a children's story, I think it is wise to make this one more optimistic. Yeah, I reckon. I think that's all I have to say. Although I think one flaw is that, as you can tell, he has what's his name, Fletcher. Yeah, he has a crossbow with a variety of abilities in each arrow. Abilities which would be minorly elements-like, because this race is also quite knowledgeable of the elements as well. Not in the Socher's level of knowledge, but being able to weaponize bits of it at a point where split a body in arrows, being able to summon it as well. These are traits of elements, by the way. So it's still a limited version of the element's powers in these arrows. And it's not just one element equals each arrow. It's like all of these characters having certain aspects of certain traits of the elements. His arrows would vary too. So, for instance, a plant one, an animal summoning one, and a temporary invincibility one, maybe. So, yeah, that's 3 types of arrows, all coming from Living Gore. You probably get the idea. Sadly, outside of a couple of bits and bobs, yeah, these powers aren't shown, which is a bit of a shame. You can assume they're special by how they're designed or how they can be summoned on a whim. Yeah, a bit unfortunate. Out of it. And also you can tell it's a motor in this ditch as well from the glowing jade. But anyway, yeah, let's move on. Alright, so I think one more thing before I move on is that as Vetra is a crossbow user, I did used to have another character who was, I guess, a bit like a Hawkeye ripoff with a crossbow and has his own type of arrows as well. And yeah, he was just another person, but just a skilled one at that. And as cool as he is, yeah, I think what I've done with Fletcher is far more the original. And funny enough, sometimes artists like me to have the idea where if I have a slot for a new character, who shall I be? Shall I make it completely original or come from an existing idea? And I've kind of done both with Fletcher, which kind of makes him interesting. There's a whole heap of other characters which you'll see on my Instagram, which I really would like to put on the story, and that's one potential of the spin-offs and such, or maybe an entirely new story. But I think recently I seem to be more comfortable in making spin-offs of this story because it's having to come up with a new lore in history, and I don't really want to get that mixed up. And artists like me and George Lucas and J.K. Rowling, even if they have other ideas, they're what their main magnum opus is, and so that's what I want to have Haphazard to be. And also, I used to think it was Haphazard. I think that's how you pronounce it with the P and H, but yeah, I guess you can say either way, but normally it's Haphazard. That's how you would pronounce the title. Yeah, I wish there was the other pronunciation, but oh well. But anyway, this is a new area of Earth, and I think this is me using another holiday picture of mine, unless I have been doing some research and I've tried to get some ideas from various images and then put it all into one setting. Yeah, in this case it's a windy river with a couple of trees. And yeah, I think that's what happened here. And a good portion of other drawings have been like that. If not, they've been drawn on a whim because of some of the settings being more simpler than others. But yeah, in this one, pretty nice moment between these two. So normally it's quite interesting where some of the best villains have a character that grounds them to some extent. And in this case, Shevzeinful and Vatu had a complicated relationship of being at each other, and even in book 3, you would have seen Vatu being like, "Hey, Zeinful, just wait out here while I use the elements." So a bit of belittlement, but because of the passage of time, and I said in the text and in here, Vatu is trying to be like, "Hey, sorry for everything. The elements are yours. We'll always share them as well, and let's do our goal together, shall we?" Which is, yeah, I think that's definitely nice. And even if they're villains, it is nice for them to have. So it's called what's it called? Villains at peace. I think that's what the term is, where they have their own chance to relax, which makes them more human. Which that's what make villains more interesting. Even if they're still bad guys. And also said above, they went to the Green Apes. That would have been another deleted scene and an instance of Zynfor trying to not accept any of Vata's respect towards him. Like Zynfor would probably find that a bit alien, for Vata to be this nice, but at least it's made up for now, and well, in some extent. Yeah, probably could things like that probably could do with more time, but as it goes, I think this is vaguely okay compared to other problems in the story. And I think yeah, Book 5 definitely had a massive reduction because, as mentioned, this was a planned TV series from, with 6 episodes in each season. And one of the episodes was dedicated to like a history, no, like a episode set in the past where you see how, Xanthor grew up to be what he is now, and how they did manage to get hold of one element which started the, it was made as the amulet was created. The eternal element amulet is what Xynthor wears to embody all the elements. So it was that era, and how that used to be like with him, and how Xynthor was a great trainer, and how he had a great leader potential because of his feats during a battle, fighting the elements at their living forms before they were just forms of energy. So yeah, all nice, interesting stuff, but it goes beyond 36 pages, and it is definitely a good spin-off story, or something to be expanded upon in the future. And then you can also see that the Goons have also made their own way as well. Going to you'll see where they end up in, but Moloch is going to support these two as they found out about Promoter staying on Earth after Torrid was defeated. And yeah, and as mentioned, yeah, Torrid being an ally to Xynthor was removed in the end. They did have a scene of talking to one another, but all that connection was definitely deleted in the end. But yeah, I think thanks to good analytical research back at the Green Ape Planet, as well as confronting them, which wouldn't be so good for them, they probably see the race as quite threatening as well. Because yeah, the Green Apes, they're definitely an intelligent race, probably would be up for fighting, or this GPS nonsense that could be quite risky to Xynthor and stuff. And what I was talking about, oh yeah, her motor being on Earth. So yeah, I think that's a pretty decent assumption because they would have had a rough idea the other elements are. Sorry, I've just accidentally gone on to the next page. Um, so yeah, because I think that was also in deleted scene material where they've thanks to the battle on Hash 2, you would assume that the Titans have living all back, and there's Meg and Joel with getting the Vibra back, and even I think could it be as Liverock saying, "Oh, we know Forza is with the Sotchers," so I think he could have revealed that. I think it would have been Torrid, but like I said, Torrid's no longer a light design for when it comes to planning the story before creating it. So yeah, I think all of that could have been in writing as well to save the confusion. But I think if you've see like design for being obsessed with where all the elements are, then yeah, I think these are I guess slightly convenient if not reasonable conclusions. And also, yeah, we see yeah, there is building destruction, but even then, how I imagine it would be far worse. There would be people with very limited resources, maybe no electricity, yeah, something like that. I think a page like that would have been nice, to see what nearly this is what all the races, not all the planets are like essentially. But yeah, I think this is all we get of that, which is a bit of a shame because you want to catch up your audience what the status quo is like, and despite a couple of lines or visuals, and thanks to looking at the prior stories, you get the idea, but you're not shown it, which isn't as effective as it would be. And in here you have servicemen, they're limited, and they're all gone. And this is Carpo, who's tried to send some Titrans down to fight Earth, and Dion. Is it said that Dion sensed it? Oh my god, did I forget to write that in as well? So yeah, it is definitely planned, or was planned, that Dion saw that Earth was in trouble, and so him and some Titrans go down to try and stop this fight. This is where most of the bleeds of Earth are at, and this is where one of the elements would have been at. So yeah, and it's also a chance to try and slow them down, especially if the others were to face another set of bad guy later on. Because if Dion has only seen this lot down there, then yeah, it's probably like a split division thing. So yeah, definitely wise to have the rest of the Legion and other Titrans back up there. But yeah, this definitely bonds the two. And Xanthor has one element, and you can see how he's both good with the element while also being good at martial arts. And also as a spoiler, oh I know you can see it anyway. Yeah, Retron sadly dies in battle. Trying to help the president, and the president got Retron back on his feet. While that's trying to redeem himself, and that's a brand new Earth gun, by the way. Never been established at all now. You could assume Retron has a side on, or all the time, which is definitely wise for someone like him. So the president being involved in combat as well, quite an interesting moment for him, and he does seem to be fine. But as said later on, most of the Titarans and servicemen are down, Retron is down. Dion was badly attacked as well. With Zavor and an element, that's definitely bad news for Dion. Quite damaging stuff. But also Monarch does find out that the element's been moved, and so that's where they do need to move elsewhere. But thanks to the other goons, they have an idea where they're going to, thanks to one of the goons seeing which race was resurrected. And so, that's how this lot has the direction of going up to get the cube element next. And you'll also see later on in the story, all of the goons do get defeated. Even Ekron has like last few breaths, despite him getting the second element to Zion from Vata. So quite interesting turn of events there. I think that's what I say about it. Let's move on. Alright, so as you can see, there's 3 teams, and either one of them is slightly split up because of Dion and some of the Titrans going down to Earth. But here, you have what the rest of the team's been up to, and you can see that the the Titrans and other members of the Legion, because last time the Titrans of the Legion fought with one another, it was like with the main members almost, but with here, it's with most of the side members, which is quite an interesting way to portray Marina's having a different selection of characters to go with the Titarans. And quite interesting few details. So you have Bunking getting thrown, you have Vastrodin who's losing to a Pasnos. And this looks like a smaller Tritaran as well, like a younger one who's eager to fight, which that's a nice detail. And even this one looks slightly younger as well. Or it actually looks like he's interacting with the ground to make the vines happen, to which would give them an advantage. Looks like Ravicon who's about to get taken off Hellwolf there. Considering they're both 4 legs characters, they'd be interesting to have them fight against one another. And you also have Pod who looks like he's done no good hit against Ekron as well. I wouldn't be surprised if that's what killed Ekron later on. But despite the upper hand here, Living Gold was still taken away from the Titrans, which definitely adds the stakes. Because that's another thing in the story. Like the further you go on, I thought I've already mentioned this about the further you go on in the story, the higher stakes would be. But here it's definitely more clear. Like each element that is gained, it's adds to the problem for the heroes. And that's think that does. It does sound scary. And not to mention, I think this might be Rondo if Carpe is tracked down in Earth, and they probably would have used that massive shipping book for to get there. And Carpe would be helping the other Titrans fight the goons here. And also, I think this is meant to be a sleeve with an arm, but it looks like it's a bit of a tangent. I'm not too keen on it. And not to mention it's more vegetation and a river and a mountain, which is a bit more compared to what we've seen of the outside of the Titran land. And I would have wanted it to make it so much vivid with the vegetation, but as we know, that doesn't seem to be the case. And Liverpool would be inside this mountain as well. And you could probably argue that maybe the vines act as a defence, or the defence has been breached, and so this is the last resort. I would could work. And it's also said later because Pasmus is still trying to get his vibe back, and there's Hellwolf who's worried about a race. They will probably all get hurt if she's not around, and Pod might still feel a bit off about the Legion because he's not seen them yet. He still wants to act on his own, and he's seen people who he has got on better recently. Like Pasmus and Hellwolf. Definitely likes them lot. A bit more at the moment. But even if, as you'll see later, Pod he still needs just to be a bit nicer with Zami and Nicole. Sorry. I think that's what I have to say. So from this shot, this is where most of the goons are taken down essentially, and it's actually the president who gets rid of Moloch as well by a very neat shot. Well, that's how I pictured it. And in that little pistol Retron dropped, the president could have used that. Because it's only said that Retron, that that Molo, died off screen. But it's I've had the idea of the president doing it, and it is sadly off screen. But at least the president is as much of a vital character compared to the other ones we've been seeing more of. Right, let's go. So as mentioned, Ekron just managed to make it, and if you're wondering how they got there and back, they had small off-screen stuff, unfortunately, and you can even see in my 3D ship videos that there was a Design for a Goon ship. That's what they would have used, or There's also this one idea I had where Moloch, the servant, yeah, sorry, he had devices which he gave to the goons, and they help the goons go straight back to the Dark Fortress for any reason. But yeah, neither of them have been established, so yeah, so kind of fortunate because it allows the next step to take place in the story. But regardless, it's still yeah, they're back at the Dark Fortress, which seems to be their beaten returning spot almost. Yeah, definitely away from all the other trouble, so yeah, you can see why this would be a spot. And not to mention, it's a good moment as well. Xyphos known all of these goons for quite some time. It isn't known about their ages, but you can assume that they lived like beyond 30 maybe. They're all just like that level of maturity. Probably more mature than the Legion, actually. I think I just said mature earlier. I hardly get words mixed up, thankfully that's not been so much in the case of the series. But anyway, it is kind of nice for Bata to spot Xyphos, with all of those goons he's lost, and the likes of Azona and Mechador as well, who they might have had some nice moments together as well. So yeah, Xyphos is nearly losing everything as he's reaching his goal, and it will get far worse for him. So what's interesting is that normally in stories you get like the heroes being super low and you have the villains be at the high point. But despite the stakes being higher, the villains also still get him, punished on their own as well. Which, yeah, it's like yeah, it's all both sides are struggling for that goal and they're still facing their own obstacles. It almost makes you, yeah, it just adds to the sympathy really. And you can also see Living Gore at its most original form. It's essentially a plant life generator, which is I'm not sure. I think it's a survey question actually. Which one's your favourite element? I'm not gonna lie, I do like Living Gore. Like when it came to Skylanders, even that has to go with representing and dividing the elements in various ways. Even that brought water and ice together. But yeah, the life ones with plants and life. Yeah, it's just yeah, it just seems to be the most unique to me. Even that was very lightly touched upon in Avatar: The Last Airbender. Would have liked to see more of that. And I guess no distinction between these two is that Nevada has more wrinkles because they're erased at age slowly. You can imagine that with 100 years ago and they're barely changed, when they have a look at book 4. Um, yeah, let's move on. This was one of those scenes where, when it comes to dividing them and breaking them down and choosing which ones to be in the final book, this was one of those scenes where, one of those cases where I was like, okay, so if I have to choose a good last slot for book 5, what would it be? And this was that one. Because with the other books, it was kind of easier which one I wanted to order and prioritise, even though cutting out certain ones has led to a couple of massive leaps in the plot. But this one, yeah, definitely glad to keep because, it's a moment for both sides to chill with one another. And I think that's almost been the case because when you look at uh, has there been less quiet moments in early stories compared to the later ones? Now that's an interesting thought, because there aren't too many of these moments of calmness. Like, I think there are stories which, despite being action heavy, they do have like moments of relaxation. So as long as it's enough to get you invested, enough for you to understand like the setup and payoffs, like that's fine. Because even in here, because these both sides they've hardly seen each other, they both have to be divided in order to protect the elements before Cyborg gets hold of them. And yeah, and it's a representation how the Legion is slowly getting up together because there's Dion who's down, so they have a plan, which we'll see later. They already have their destination as well, and this is the Atone, by the way, and it's meant to be a sofa. Looks like a shelf. Yeah, that's definitely could have been drawn better. I think that could have been done with like do a 3D model and then draw on top of. Although even then the characters don't look like they're sitting properly. They might be a bit unsettled because I haven't seen this lot for ages. But yeah, regardless, yeah, this isn't like a glittery meeting. Glittery? No, like a happy meeting essentially, because in the light, yeah, we've lost Limingol, but I acted on design for the most here, so yeah, it could have, yeah, I think that kind of clash would have happened. And as also said in the book, these two, Basmos and Hate Wolves, are starting to see how their own worries or prioritization is starting to affect them. Because even the Legion here, they will be like, oh, I want to make a difference. I still want my attention. And even from this moment here, even Fletcher may get a good idea that, oh no, they're not your average heroes, are they? Like even the living elements would have been, definitely saving people more because, that's, I think I can see them having, being that their ultimate goal because, they're not as complex as this lot who are, have more of a limited lifespan and they live in a world which is more developed because those living elements, they would have lived at a time where it was just all nice and simple. And I know I'm going on like a massive headcanon thing. If anything, that's just another spin off idea. But yeah, I think that would still help with understanding bits and bobs. I know it is headcanon, but yeah, there you go. And when sorry, I said and twice in a row, so I had to pause for a second. There was this, if you remember earlier, where servicemen were going to go with Sammy's team, and there was this one idea where Fletcher has like his own moments of trying to get to know everyone, and that's where he gets hints of, oh, the Legion actually have been shown to want to prioritise their own goals above saving human life. You look at the statistics. To which, yeah, I think it's more blatant compared to this, because it doesn't actually say that Fletcher, sees a side to the Legion that's flawed, but at least he sees more of that later on, to which I think that might be the next page. I could be wrong. And so yeah, definitely like this moment. It gives them 2 time with each other, and they have at the next stage what to do. So yeah, let's get going. Yeah, once again we have water that's actually detailed, which is quite nice. And yeah, it's almost like one of those lands where it has like a waterfall from the top, and then it just goes down. Like, yeah, because there's some, I think it's like a video game used to be inspired by, where there was one type of land which is only made up of a land that goes upwards, because it's all surrounding a waterfall, to which yeah, quite interesting. And you also have like these long trees, some of them which have more bushes leaves than others, so yeah, quite neat. And yeah, you have the camos. You can pronounce it whatever, but yeah, creatures which minorly camouflage, and as shown here, it just goes to show that it's not just black and white with, oh, are you the Legion side or the Xyphon side? You also have, there will be races who have their own intentions, and in here, they would have been after the Legion because of their misdoings, to which I think it's said here, revenge against Legion. Yes, okay, that's actually supported. And so yeah, and despite the defensive phase, they're all trying to calm themselves down. That's not a reaction I would say Nicole doing. She'll probably be a bit more cross and chill. Yeah, I don't. God damn it! Only if I had more time to flesh out these facial expressions more, and also I think Fletcher shrunk a bit as well. Yeah, oh well. So yeah, they have their guns as well, and they do have a interesting set of abilities, but this is the only time we see them. You'll see on the character guide and potential spin-off material about seeing more of them. And also this is where you get the turn, like a step where Vetra's like, Legion, I can see you are more into your goals than saving the people. I've seen, like the conversation with you two earlier, probably other conversations, and even as well as handling this light as well. Because Sammy and Nicola would have been like, hey, I'm trying to do this, this, and this. Like, we will be stopping time for, but at the same time, Fred just like, they're not mentioning about the people. So, yeah, he could argue, this is a brand new character. Why does he have this instant maturity and criticising the Legion in that way? Does that make him a bit of a snob? But yeah, I guess think about it. There are traits of that because we don't often like it when we've known characters for so long, and then you have this slightly unestablished character that's almost seems to have more the moral ground. But I think at the same time, if you look at past instances of the story and seeing that the Legion are definitely not overcome all of those flaws yet, and I guess that could have been better for them to find out on their own instead of adding another character, and I guess it would have rounded up the story more instead of adding a new character. But at the same time, I did want the Titran's progress to pay off, and there was even this one idea where all of their progress gets stopped by Xyphon and the Goons, but I think that would have added too much, and it would have stalled anyway because of taking living, or at least would progress very slowly. And so yeah, I think that those couple of ideas, yeah, definitely debatable. Still like the look of the creatures though. Yeah, nothing else I had to say. Yeah, let's move on. I say first of all, yeah, there's weird space. Could have drawn something there because it just, if anything, it just goes to show the heights. But as you can tell in these books, the height and stuff hasn't been the most consistent, and you can tell these are duplicated as well. Oh wait, actually no, the eyes are pointed downwards in there. Oh yeah. Okay, so yeah, not everyone's looking over there. But yeah, so this is Pod's plan. So after losing living gold, they're like, oh yeah, we know where Viper is, we know where the other element is, and we already have a good basis for how that could work. Because with the Titans, I think it said Vondor, yeah, I think Vondor does come with them, even if he's not there. I could have drawn him. So you do have Carpo's team down on Earth who, sorry, oh god, I hate that. Anyway, so you have Carpo's team of Titans who most of them would have been down, like the President and the servicemen. So what's happening down Earth, they can't do much aside from one thing, which we'll see later. And then you have Vondor, who probably had a limited number of Titans who had to fight, and I think it's still wise to have some of them stay there to at least protect the planet, and just in case. So yeah, you have a Legion and entire race, and Yeah, so yeah, definitely a sensible next step. And yeah, it's the first time these have seen other morphils. And you would think, oh, did they all split off? Do they, think bad about themselves and have like a really sad life? But no, they've reformed themselves by themselves, like with no Mechador influence, and maybe thanks to Pod being slightly inspiring. Yeah, they've made themselves much better. And obviously, they had no chance to show that publicly. And even Pod's like, I may want to resolve, stop all of this carnage with the Morphils, but I definitely don't want to be the leader. But that's what these lot are seeing. Because even in book 4, even though it's still fighting against Mechador to take ownership, but but there's been no pay attention to detail on how, other than beating Mechador, like what else could have made a Pod a leader, and and this is where we do actually get that side, because I think if there was no leader thing in general, Pod would probably be like, yeah, there you go, you have no leader anymore, just do what you want, just stop causing havoc. I think that's what Pod would have done. But as you'll probably start to see, Pod does end up leading the Morphils, to which it was quite nice because Pod's quite a headstrong character, and he's got a good idea on how Nicholas led the team, and if Pod isn't always great with being in the Legion, he can always be an entity of his own, which he can probably be rather good at, even if he's made some missteps before. So yeah, pretty interesting set of aspects there. And you also have the floating balls, which the Morphils can swim through. Yeah, pretty. That's definitely the most interesting part about this environment. And was there anything else? I guess the only other thing is that I think this is also said later that Vondor is slightly better with the Legion. I don't think that's been said before, because Vondor is definitely the most cynical type to run, especially compared to Carpo. So he probably would be quite reluctant to join them, but at the same time, if he wants to protect his Titans, then I think this is the best way for that to happen. But even then, I think that could have done with like a page on its own, to encourage at least one or two Titans to come with them if they're having to protect one of the elements, because his team got the other, and even Zemi's team, as you'll see later on, there are some more fills which are sent to them, and they're not seen, sadly. That's a loss of time as well, but at least that is backed up with a line. And yeah, let's get going. Alright, so we made it to Fetcher's planet, and as Fetcher is the first of his race to come back after Big Extinction, the planet would be quite scarce. And there was even a deleted scene where it was just basically everyone searching throughout the area, and they have Fetcher being all nostalgic and I want to say nostalgic. Like there was this one idea where they have minds that share other beings' minds, but no, like this entire race exchanging memories and stuff. But yeah, that's far too complicated. So if anything, it's just Fletcher seeing what his culture is like, and and even as said in the writing, that's where Zami's like, I too had this situation where I never, got to see my race at first, but there's a possibility we can bring them back, and not alone and stuff, because that's what the Legion is, a load of oddities mixed into one. And yeah, I think that definitely makes a nice moment as well. It definitely allows them to connect, and that even leads to another idea later on, which we'll say later. So on the other side of my recording. And so yeah, with sorry, this might be more headcanon. So as Fetcher does seem to have, his races are more, they have knowledge of the elements too. That's where they too have a place to protect it as well. They'll probably have it just in case, probably compared to other races, compared to like the Titrans who had the cove. But the Sochers have the vault just in case, don't they? Unless that's just to protect anything. Like this area seems to cope with Hermota quite well. So yeah, I think good 3 gaps there. Yeah, and you can also say it looks like the element is like we've stood by this stand here. It's not totally clear, so yeah, I've got to make that clearer. And you can also see, if you remember what Hermota looked like with cubes piled on top of one another. Oh yeah, there's another example. And with Carl, having traits of the cube element himself, he would be known how to handle it. It's the only instance or one of the instances of seeing how his eye is also a mouth as well, which is kind of cool. Right, let's go on to the next one. Alright, and you can also see the outside of Fetcher's world as well. So, as you can somewhat guess, it's almost Australian inspired, where have these types of large scale drawings on stone and stuff. It's not something I'm most knowledgeable about, but you can also say it's like caveman culture as well, with the cave drawings. And yeah, either way, it's like a type of patriotism. The Fletchers are very patriotic about themselves, but I think as we can see from Fletcher, even if their wisdom is already already at a peak, um, like since they are first born. They do, show off a bit with like statues and drawings, but they seem to be quite wise as well, despite that, which is definitely makes this race stand out. And it's and I think I've even put my guide where this race can do whatever. They can draw whenever, which is quite interesting because all of these drawings where have had memories. This could have been a grave, if and this could be a spot where two of them used to play. And so there's a huge culture which has been wiped away because Zeinfeld definitely would have been threatened by that. It can also say that this is where they go to. There's the green names for the locations. You have Earth that's been getting in the way, and then they're on a planet which they have wiped away. So there's a minor symbolism for where these are going, and even the Morphill planet is almost representative on how Seinfeld does get some comeuppance because after Mechador going at Seinfeld, and now it's just the rest of the Morphills and their planet which becomes Seinfeld's dead end. And speaking of him, I think he's the most interesting character in this drawing. So you have some minor temporary evolution, and he has Arvin's ability. And Seinfeld now has it, and he's summoned a couple of claws from his hands. And this is him on top of Nicole, which is quite a feat. I'm surprised Nicole isn't squashed yet. Maybe it could be like an angle or a quick second, because even it's that vine here. No, it's the vine which Seinfeld summons as well. Like this is meant to be him controlling the vine from underground, which gets Zami out of the way, which allows Vata to go and find the element. And because it looks like he's thrown him. Unless it's like a collaborative effort, who knows? But the lines on the arms definitely make that confusing. Where you can probably tell it is the vine throwing Zami away, and it also shows how multitasking he is. Because if there's like a theory on how the villains are all similar to one another, mainly on what traits of each of the prior villains are in Zeinfeld, and you can see that he has the multitasking wisdom of Ozona rather, and has like the vicious of intent of Mechajor and the strategic and the leadership of Orphean. And there's just all sorts of similarities which link them, which is quite interesting. It kind of reminds me of a video where all of the three prequel villains, how they all have traits for Darth Vader. So, quite an interesting theory, which I think could work with any story really. And one error, he has long sleeves, so he might grow in his arms, and the funny way it looks, that's definitely flawed. But I do like his crossbow though. I think that's a really good angle, and I did use I think I'd used image referencing for that one. I'm not sure if I've drawn on top of an image or managed to replicate it okay. Maybe the handle could be better, but definitely you could tell what he's trying to aim for. And and also I think this planet, because it's a new planet, it's also able to represent what the book colours are, because for those chugging memory, this colour is almost like what the colour is when putting all the elements together. And so you do get this planet, but then you have like the established planets with their established colour palettes. And I think that's an improvement. I could have made like Earth or the Titran planet that colour, and it just goes to show what Mechador has done. Because if our Earth got wrecked, then it would be like grey and beige everywhere. And so I think by doing that, it probably would have really shown Seinfeld's impact on. Sorry, more noises. Oh yeah, thank you. I think that's my dog listened. But I think that could have been really nice to make this book more representative of this yellowish green. As said of both, so where Hemota was placed, it was placed in a special area where you can't get out without hurting yourself, or there's no way to retreat the element safely. And so Vata is giving up his life so that Seinfeld could have the power. So unfortunately, Seinfeld is losing his most significant connection with anyone, because he wouldn't have been like touchy with his goons aside from like the main ones like Mollog, something like that I've personally imagined. But for this to happen, this is quite devastating. And also this is almost like quite a gruesome death as well, because so like I've had this idea where I thought we've seen it before, because if you remember when Asocha tried to get hold of Ozona's power and he was like zapped to death, but here though, by touching this one, you're falling into block despite being living beings. That will happen if you hold the element for too long. Although I think us people we would die instantly, but because Vata is they're like him and Zeinfeld are the most powerful race, but even then the limits, there is still like limits on how they use the elements until they are like 100% once the machine is used. So yeah, but yeah, he managed to go all this way, and yeah, Xylophor does have the element. And it's also said later on in the book that they managed to transport thanks to, yeah, it's mainly thanks to Forza, and as mentioned with the ships and everything. Yeah, Forza, as we know, is anti-space, and Livergold does give him wings, which you'll see later. Because if you remember where Design 4 had this prior design where he was too human, he also did used to have wings to make him more scary, but that did get in the way with how I imagined him with fighting. I guess I could have kept them in, but at least he does get them when he needs them, with the thanks of Living Gore. But yeah, I like this statue as well. I just think that's a really nice detail to the area, and you can see it's cracked as well, and it's just also an edge of a cliff. And also with the keep element, you can imagine Zion for like creating his own craft with the help of Forza as well. Even Living Gore could probably help with adapting to space temporarily. And but yeah, I guess a couple of details. You can see how the armor's starting to give in. His hand is turned into blocks. He's holding the element, and he's like really getting through his system. Yeah, quite gruesome. He's kind of sticking with me. And you could argue, why isn't the Legion dead? And they will either assume they're dead or oh yeah, it is said that he's fed up and so he's going to leave them. To which, yeah, because with Torrid, at least he had an excuse to get rushing, and there's like a massive chance the Legion would all go from the Cube Storm. But in here, yeah, I think Xylophor could have done the same. Sure, it would have been repeating it, but yeah, this isn't enough. Yeah, I think they should have definitely got rid of them, because just because you're fed up with fighting a certain person doesn't mean you leave them. And yeah, I think that's a quite a yeah, I think that's definitely dented the story. Unless, well, if Xylophor, on the other hand, has had three elements and he's quite full of pride and anger, then maybe his decisions are slightly overlooked, and once he has Vibra, he'll be able to get rid of who he wants. But even then, that's delaying, and that's your emotions overtaking your own logic, to which you could say it's Xylophor's flaw, but that's not been established well enough. So, yeah, I think that's the most flawed part of the story, I reckon. Yeah, that's probably the first time I say that, because when it comes to like listing and finding out all these problems in the story, and yeah, mind you, just because I'm finding problems in my own work, I do find it interesting on what bits I've didn't quite establish or follow through. It's yeah, I do find it quite interesting looking into it, because I'm quite a solid person, as in if anyone criticises my work, I'm just like, okay, that does sound pretty handy. I'll do that in the future, or with any current work. And once I get my softwares back, I think I'll definitely take the time to fix this, unless like my novel becomes like the definitive version of this story. Yeah, either way works. And I thought there's something else as well. It'll probably come back to me. But anyway, let's move on. All right, so you have one more moment for Seinfeld, and yeah, I think this is another nice one as well. And when you've even like the final version of the pages, I probably would have liked to do more detail on the grave. I didn't want to do like your everyday grave, like what Arvin's was, because it's an entirely different race. But I think having the grave is just a portrait, and yeah, I could do with like writing or some imagery, or it might not even be a grave. It could have been something else entirely, like a monument. But even then, I think that should have been done better. And I'm not sure if I've yeah if oh yeah I don't think you would be collecting the fallen blocks of your dead dad, and blocks which probably could end up hurting him more, considering he's already doing too much with holding three elements in one device in his chest. So yeah, I think this is like one of those graves which is just created, but there's no body below, and I think it is said. Okay, well you can assume that Hemota, being the source of all materials, has helped in using that, and it's slightly embedded in the ground. And you can also see what the other areas of Xylophor's land is like, or even what it used to be like. Because if you remember, it was like quite well built up in Book 3, but in here it is just mostly barren. And yeah, this adds to what other worlds could have looked like, especially Earth. It could have looked far better, because this you could assume it's a palace or any other area. And there's the machine, which is still functional, although I think if it was designed to probably properly intake elements into a single being, then yeah, I think it would have to be tough itself. And I do like the river there, and it's a river that could it's probably been expanded for quite some time. And yeah, and you can see Seinfeld being sad as well. His kneeling could have been better, but even then, yeah, it's just quite a nice moment. Definitely a last moment with his dad, or just like a moment to think from his at least. And oh yeah, another interesting detail. So yeah, so it isn't just diminishing violence. Like even Zyphel has this idea where he sees himself as like the embodiment of all of these elements, and so he can do all sorts, such as probably like making these buildings better. So for those who don't know what a brownfield site is, so if you've seen like abandoned building or spare concrete area that's like unclean and being unused. That's what a brownfield site is. And so yeah, so Xenofall, so from that hint you probably see that Xenofall does have other intentions with the elements, but if that comes with losing life or getting rid of races entirely, then yeah, that is definitely unwise if in the grander scheme of things. And yeah, probably would have been nice to see that actually. I did envision a couple of scenes like that, but I think I did struggle to see how to implement it. Like maybe you could have designed for better, have like a quick stop to fix an area, maybe a chance to black practice the elements a bit, regain the knowledge a bit, like refresh it. But even then, I think that would have jolted the pacing a bit. But I guess it just depends how it's presented. Yeah, and you can also see that from book 3 and now, even Seinfeld's land is almost using that green and yellow kind of colour as well. I think the colour has a name. I sometimes call it the Shrek colour because Shrek's skin colour is in between that green and yellow area, and so yeah, even his Seinfeld's land represents the colour scheme book 5 should have taken more upon of. But regardless, you have the Legion finally reunite and they both at each other because both of them have lost an element each. No one was there to stop Forza, but they do have one more chance to stop this one. You could say, well, I think putting all the elements in one area, that's definitely wise. So to have multiple defences, especially if there's the potential more beings around, then yeah, yeah, I think that's definitely wise because there's Einform and his father could have split up, and Dion would have, because Dion's still alive, he would have still, probably would have updated everyone about Einform and that his dad's around. Yeah, it's not said, but you can imagine it, and not to mention 2Ds and heated. That's a bit unfortunate, and yeah, as you can tell, the writing of these books, it's not, yeah, it's yet to be fixed because there's some punctuation and some wrong words every now and again, but as long as it's enough clarity, then I guess that's fine considering what position I'm in. Yeah, so so you can see why each element was protected on their own, but now we get all the forces for one element, and yeah, Fletcher being curious about the world, and I guess from other instances. So despite being a new member, he's mostly distant, and I think that's because for someone like him, he can't like suddenly throw himself into a friendship group. Like, yeah, sure, he can work for them, yes, he can get on with them, yes, there might be like future missions, but even then, I think if he has like his own priorities, or at least give space when it's wise to, then yeah, I think that so he is definitely sociable, but he has his cap on, and so he's just taking his time to look around the area and not get involved in this this clash. Although even then, there's not much time left, but maybe he was about to, but then you have Zami already trying to get them together, and Fletcher probably knows Zami might do the better job at stopping this clash. Yeah, sorry, that's more headcanon as well. Yeah, I think it would have been nice to get him involved actually. I think I just made up most of that, but I think that still remains true considering other areas. But yeah, not to mention his head's too small. Yeah, never draw an error there. And yeah, and I guess you could have a person else trying to stop this as well. Maybe he's defending pods, saying how they actually tried to connect to them lot and how they've lost more morphils because of them. Because anything mean, everything's definitely needed considering this is the biggest stake it will be. And you also have her head's too big this time, but even then she's a bit off about how the Legion is treating each other. She would have seen bits of that in book 2, but seeing this definitely would have worried her. But even then, I think them two would probably start getting their own grip together and start realizing they need to put their own problems aside, and they can't they need to save the universe. That's what they're almost at, but yeah, these two are still getting at each other. But as I said later, Zami has like a small speech for everyone, and it calms down the situation, it inspires everyone. Yeah, so yeah, I think that's like two, well, I guess like multiple purposes in this one page. I think it would have been nice for Zami to get a crowd, especially as it shows that he is finally getting some attention, even if he is needing to prioritise the lives of others more. Yeah, I think that could have been done instead of this, something alongside it. I don't know, it's really tricky to put multi-purpose pages or figuring out which one should be cut. And it's not like I want to go back to 56 either, because at the same time, you don't want to spend too much, you don't want to take too much of your audience's time. And not to mention, for those who are interested, that's where extra material could come around, like my lore guide. But even then, as you can tell already, there's proper fixes that would need to be done. And I think as a small plan update, I think I will be focusing on focusing on starting that novel. And for those who are interested, I still have a couple of more video ideas to be released before I go on another break, because I'm doing other bits and bobs as well. And that also means no software means no doing any more videos aside from this, which, you know, still has plenty of opportunities. And I even have a commentary idea if I know how to turn, you know, if YouTube can just accept an MP3 profile. I think that it can accept MP3 as long as you have a thumbnail. But anyway, that's totally future talk. Let's get moving. Yeah, so firstly, this whole theory of Thatcher like keeping his distance, or you know, making just not being as involved, or not throwing himself too much into the team, or being too sentimental, especially considering later on. So yeah, I think that so what I said here has some minor truth there. But anyway, do you have this quite neat shot of, you know, all the well, yeah, there's no Vondor. He's been forgotten to be drawn in. Oh, I think I did only forget to put him in, but even then, you could assume he's behind, and he may not be as significant as these 5 characters, but I think drawing him in as well would have been quite nice. Yeah, maybe more fills around as well, you know, to show that they're actually planning instead of, oh look, there's Rickadore's body, let's find a way to heal him. Yeah, I think that would have improved that scene, but I think this still does the writing and what's here. It shows that, okay, so we know where this is and we need to find a way to protect it. So yeah, I guess you could say it's a tad repetitive that, oh, you know, Hermota and Living Gore, they have the same scene formula of, oh, they plan to defend it, quick chill time, and then they lose the element. And other than the element, you know, it is interesting for what the outcome could be. And I guess it could be a tad repetitive, but I think it's just because it's with different characters who have their own development and it's different outcomes as well, you know, different villains as well. So I think that's enough to differentiate compared to book 3 where it had 2 instances of, and you know, in book 4 had the same mistake of, oh, you know, help us race, oh no, we've accidentally bothered the race, let's leave them alone, oh no, a fight's coming, let's go and protect them. Because if you remember, that happens 2 times in book 3 and then once more in book 4. And so yeah, that just goes to the advice of, you just make sure your plot varies enough. But yeah, it's nice to see Mechador's body as well. Not sure what book 4 mentioned, but the Mechador's body was taken away by the Morphils. You know, definitely another safe spot as well. And I think the Morphils would have said that they would prefer to stay in the planet they're on. You know, there's no evidence of the Morphils, you know, wants to go out and about considering what happened afterwards. So yeah, I think it's definitely wise of them to keep themselves isolated. But you know, that does change later on in the story. And yeah, let's go into it. I guess one more thing, he could have had a pod and, you know, have like his own moment looking at Mechador's body. But he could argue that because Mechador is affected, you know, them lot, then it's just all looking down on him, and now he's, you know, embodying a powerful element that needs protecting. So yeah, it's almost adding to the theme of like sharing responsibilities almost, or you know, sharing the same trouble they've had with the bad guy, even if Pod's had more of it. But anyway, we get on to definitely an interesting shot, you know, really showing how powerful Zionthor is. So, yeah, this is him on his own. He's taking down Morphils. Yeah, Orphean is, if he seems to be the least affected here, but you can tell he has got his fighting mojo back. And you have Poddy's about to be countered. It's nice to see him use his ice powers to try and form a trident, to which I just stuttered there. Sorry. Which yeah, Zionthor, you know, just manages to budge out the way. There's Hellwolf who's trying to yeah, just to get Zionthor that way, but you know, that doesn't look like it's helped. But the most interesting part is that you have Zami trying to zap Zionthor here, you know, probably to make him kneel down, or maybe, yeah, because when it comes to like a massive teamwork against one guy, you want to be select where they're at, and you could just see that each member is going for each body part, but even then, where is Vondor? Oh no! Oh my god! It just looks like it just suddenly appeared and went later in the battle. Unless because if Wrighton doesn't support it, he could say that he decide to join later, and you know, thanks to, and you know, they've been to the Morphil planet before the died to run, so maybe they know where they're going, but that'll be quite some navigating work there. So yeah, but the initial plan is that Vondor is with them. You know, it's almost like, if you remember, there was going to be one of those bigs in a past version of the Legion when this story is being planned. So it's almost like, yeah, just like a nice meta payoff for me personally. You know, just going how a once planned idea comes about in some way. But anyway, yeah, let's go back to Zambi. So he's trying to zap Signfall's leg, but he uses Hermota to knock him back and spawn a single Q from his leg, which is quite interesting. And you know, it would have also been, and yeah, it's almost like representing his father's rage. Well, no, like the rage of losing his father, who's taking it out on the others as well, which is quite a nice detail. Because I remember I've had this one idea of Zami being the most responsible for Vata's death, but as you can see later on, it just looks like just already put himself in a corner. But even then, he'll still be mad at the Legion for, trying to, take away his father, to which he was trying to make connections with again. And there's also above where, as mentioned with Zami and Fletcher, they connected via losing races, and so they could try and say to Cypher, hey, maybe beyond your maybe try and collab with us, at least try and talk it down before fighting, because it could argue, why not do this before? But I think there has been cases with Orphean and if actually, yeah, all of those villains have already jumpstart something massive, hence why they will need to get rid of them. But with Zine 4, he isn't doing anything cataclysmic yet, so yeah, it's a chance to slow him down and make a reconsider. So yeah, it's definitely a lot more breathing room for that. And yeah, nice unique twist to Book 5's climax. So yeah, it's just an interesting idea. I just suddenly realised, yeah, I think I've gotten to draw an arrow of Fletcher as well. Could have been a really nice touch as well. To have one of his arrows there, because he's definitely planned to be a character who fights more so in the distance. You can hardly see him up close. But yeah, I think seeing an arrow of him, that would have been pretty decent. And yeah, I was just trying to think of anything else. Oh yes, and I think this is written, but definitely planned by me. But the only way to, so one of Zine Force weaknesses is that a significant amount of power or hit to the amulet, it disconnects it temporarily, which makes the Zine form on his own, without the abilities. Yeah, it's not something that's played with in this book, but yeah, it's just something planned. When it comes to the novel or the TV show, that's where the Zine form can be hindered in some way, because even though you want the obstacle to be hard, you definitely want a way to hinder it, because if anything is just one singular thing with no trouble whatsoever, then yeah, that just makes it far beyond less interesting. So because yeah, even if he's tricky, he's on his own as well, and limited number of element powers compared to the past villains. I said element powers, by the way, so I think I've missaid a number. And yeah, I've already mentioned the Morphil skin attack, because there's a good few of them. And yeah, you can imagine Zyphor's got rid of them a lot, and probably all wants to get rid of later on as well. But anyway, yeah, let's move on. Yeah, so when I mentioned about Pod having this moment with Mechajaw, looking down on him, considering the history. So while that could have, you can tell how that was somewhat multitasked earlier, but with Zine 4 definitely needed that kind of scene on his own, and not to mention he has, yeah, all of the Morphils have been badly beaten up as well. You could wonder, wait, if these are genetically modified to fight like Pod is, then how come they're beaten compared to the Legion? I guess it's like a plot armor thing. If you don't know what plot armor is, it's basically where it becomes convenient where the main characters are defended compared to the side characters. And yeah, I think so I'm kind of guilty of that in this one instance here. And maybe the Morphos could have been new, or maybe they haven't fought for ages. But even then, I think that was a plot armor problem. But yeah, Zanfa has the last element, and by touching it, it's nearly getting to him. And as we have known from a couple of cases, those who have the elements tend to glow or pad the certain colour, which is kind of neat. And yeah, so Zanfa reaches it in Murkador's chest as well. You can see there's some power going along as well. And yeah, so it's not just the backstabbing from Murkador, but I don't think Seinfeld would have been impressed with what Murkador did to the universe either. He's got rid of races which Seinfeld probably wanted to keep, around. But yeah, just also next step is made. But as as explained, by fully taking the elements, he can still form new life or bring out races, almost taking on the Titran's role, but without the Titrans being there. So he's almost like a credit taker for putting himself in that position at a point where only him does the grand achievements. And not to mention, when I said about the theory of the villains being alike one another, that can be the same with the Legion as well. Like he has the strength of Pod, the arrogance of Gazami, and the leadership of Nicole. And yeah, there's just a bunch of other links that can be made as well. Is this bed too low or go to the floor? Yeah, I feel like what he was leaning on should be on above the floor, but I think it's just another tangent once again. And for those who wonder what a tangent is, I'm not sure if it's the right term to use, but sometimes there can be an error where you can tell something is drawn in line instead of being drawn naturally. So yeah, for instance, the bed is meant to be beating the floor, but not in line with it. So yeah, I mean that's slightly weak drawing there. And yeah, and also you can tell, yeah, not only does the amulet have this yellowish colour, which the poster established, but you also can see the elements that have been taken as well. Even the drawing I've done to him once had the colours be mixed in an interesting way, almost like filling a symbol. But each part of the symbol has different colours, but that would have taken too much time once again, and so you can clearly see which element is which. And I think they do stay the same as well. I've tried to keep out for that, but if I've made that error, then apologies. So yeah, let's move on. Okay, the last 11 pages of the story. How exciting. I think so anyway, I might be wrong. It's just with the PowerPoint recording, you can tell which page is which, because it's ranked up to 37 because of the poster at the start, so yeah, it's either 12 or 11. But anyway, so Zyphor has all the elements at once, and yeah, you could say it's like similar to other stories where, you know, when a villain is after all types of a certain power, and there's this moment of then glowing up, and yeah, it's so, what you can see here, it's not the most original idea, but from everything else you can see how it could, you know, stand out, you know, being like nice and simple and varied at the same time. And yeah, it's just a new spin on, you know, like hopefully by, you know, looking at these books, you can see how this stand out and what ideas I've got. So yeah, I'll be interested to see what you think of that in either the Wix comments or in my survey. The YouTube comments will be disabled because the kids are allowed to watch this video as well. But anyway, enough about that. So yeah, you can see all sorts. So you have yeah, a section of the motor, which are spawning cubes everywhere, a section of living gold where there's spirits and plants, and you have Forza, which is spawn electricity there, and you know, that's the force field bubble which he uses to protect himself with the air. Because I think on his own he probably could survive space for a decent amount of time. It could be like water for him where he can go on for a long period of time, and maybe it's just his breathing that needs preserving and nothing else, but that's just my own headcanon. And that's his wings as well, to which they did look better in other drawings I've done. You know, they're more like dragon wings, but here it looks like a plant. But you could argue that they're almost like spiritual, like you know, with these animal spirits, and they look like they're expanding with the inner parts as well. And yeah, and I guess it could be a tad bizarre that, you know, there's no like gaps in his back, but he's been able to spawn wings. No, maybe like grow from his neck or something. I don't know. Yeah, that could have been covered. And yeah, the element isn't quite. It would have been nice if this was like parallel with the amulet, but I think it was just due to what I wanted to plan and with the space I've got. Because even Vibrate here, you got fire, ice, and water all at once here. So yeah, this is the ultimate power of the universe, and I will reassure you that this is the ultimate power, because some stories, especially like expanded material, they're like, oh, actually, this is the more powerful type of energy, but I assure you this will be the case, because as mentioned, this is like the main story, and even if I like create sequels, I'll do my best not to step on everything, you know, compared to what other stories have been guilty of. So yeah, kind of like, it's a tad messy for my liking, this show. I think it could have been neater alongside other bits and bobs, but it's still kind of cool regardless. So yeah, let's move on. All right, so do you remember that one instance where I said that the president and Carpo are doing one thing? Well, that's what they have been doing since Xylophone Vata left the Earth. They've, as well as trying to recover from the battle, maybe checking on the residents. There's because if you, oh yeah, it was. I think it was said in book 4 where Earth started to harvest stars in order to add to the nitro, therefore adding to Vectron's defenses. And yeah, it looks like stars seem to be quite accessible in this universe, which, you know, I guess it's nice. I guess all of us would have wanted to access stars. But yeah, so thanks to finding one, and you could say it's convenient that because if the base has been solely wrecked as well, there's just a star there in the gaps, or maybe it was found soon enough, but somewhere safe. Maybe it was in a safe and then it was finally broken out, and then Dion is on his move. Maybe Dion could have taken a while to get there. Probably struggling to find where Zionfall is, but he probably would have been tracking the others anyway. So yeah, it's a bit had convenient timing, but regardless, it is a nice moment of a powerful character, you know, the most powerful character, like coming in and turning the tide of the fight, because everyone is all beaten down, and yeah, there's just this one more glimmer of hope. And remember, this shot just being what it is, you know, the deal managed to be strong enough to push Zionfall, but as you can see, there's some element activity there as well. So you have, I think this was, yes, that's not her motor, although I think that should have been blue, considering I made all of my explosions blue. That's just a normal whack, unless you could say it's like a cube getting crushed. Yeah, who knows. And yeah, and Zyphor was about to leave, but that's where, you know, Dion managed to get in the way. So I think there's a portion after the fight where, you know, the rings are probably got rid of or been ripped off, and then, sorry, that's missaid. Yeah, they've been probably ripped off, and then he's just like thrown there. And so yeah, let's talk about the element stuff. So so here is yeah, the yellow green color. So yeah, all of the elements put together, and you can see that there's a lot more flexibility in what can be done with the elements. And yeah, the machine still needs to be, he still needs to fully absorb Zone 4 in with the elements, and therefore he can reform the entire universe in a way which you'll see later. And but anyway, so yeah, it has this vine. He's about to throw a cube which is made up of fire, and he's also spawned this one plant which is trying to zap down here with electricity, and it's also growing cubes as well, which is going to probably fire that as well. Yeah, I know there's one side of the cube which is miscoloured, but even then, yeah, you can really see the variety of the elements in this one instance. Yeah, it's quite exciting. Sorry, that's just me getting a bit giddy. Um, oh yeah, and it's also said that Wanda managed to heal the Legion as well, to which yeah, because the only way you could heal with the Titran stuff is by like the resting method in in either the cave or the Titran ship in book 4. But it looks like any Titran could spawn special vines which will get you back up, to which yeah, I think that's almost breaking my rules, because that could have affected other fights as well, mainly the Living Gore fight. Unless like the Legion weren't that harmed, therefore they don't really need aiding for before going to the Morphils. But compared to now, where they are kind of beaten. And not to mention, Von Dor may have like healed Zami and Nicole before they came here, considering how battered they were earlier. So yeah, I think I have to admit that is kind of messy. But I thought if I was to expand on that idea, it could, because if Vandor is the kind to prefer his fist over plants, maybe it is a nice moment that he's using plants for once, and it's just like a hidden trick they can do. Because if they know the complexity of living or enough to bring back races from extinction, once you have any trace of origin, but you can also heal the plants on its own as well, because it's the plants and its energy which is doing the healing process in the cave and the ship them after all. And so I think that's the best explanation if that was to be expanded upon. But even then, it just feels like a lucky term for everyone to get back up. Because I think if it wasn't for this line, I think the Legion would be like, "Oh, Dion's back. Dion's back. I'm going to go back on my feet, despite probably being hit very hard earlier." So yeah, so I think that helps minorly here, but could have been fixed. So yeah, let's move on. I say something else I forgot to mention earlier is that you probably noticed a couple of times where Dion has been overtaken by every foe except Sliverrock and Mechajaw. And yeah, you could see that as a bit flawed, because I've seen media where when you have like a powerful character, like variety of characters, and it's the powerful one that keeps getting like damage on his own to show that this is like this threat is so big that it's even taken down the most powerful character, but everything's fine once they all work together. It's a bit of a silly trope, to which I am kind of guilty of, and I think it does serve certain purposes. Like for instance, Dion is getting outclassed by a grand foe of his. You have the Sign-4, who's obviously quite powerful. Both Dion and Sign-4, you would have seen them on their own for some time. So yeah, Dion definitely needs the help of others. And Dion being taken down by Ozona is at least midway part of the story. And you also have Torrid as well, which is a significant change between book 3 and 4. So I think there's enough variation for that reason, but even then, it's making Dion a bit of a punch bag. Sorry. But anyway, a really nice shot here as well. So instead of Sign-4 outclassing the others earlier, especially with some of the element powers, it's now the Legion with all sorts of variety of abilities, whether element related or not. Going at the Sign-4 here. So yeah, let's go and break them down. So you have Zambi, with his powerful electricity, he's able to zap the Sign-4 to this degree. You have Pod freezing him, and you can also see a trident as well. That's an ice-based one, which is jabbing at him, to help with the colours. And yeah, you can see like some marks of him being jabbed. There's Vondor's vine going around Sign-4 as well, probably trapping him. And it also could go back to this idea on how Vondor was appreciated plants a bit more. I think it's a nice arc idea which could have been expanded upon. Yeah, like because if the story's about covering like the themes of power, maybe Vondor could have had like his own little one of I'm not so keen on my powers, I prefer to be physical. But then he learns that the opposite can be just as handy, because in here it's more of a long range effect, and then as you can. We probably would have seen other instances where Titrans do control plants by thumping the ground. And so yeah, I just suddenly noticed that line there that should have been drawn off, because just looks the drawing of the body and the plant vine is very taken one another. Although it looks like it's probably squished in his face. It's a strong vine. It has spikes on as well. And speaking of spikes, that's the the sharp fur shooting which Hailwolf is capable of. Yeah, that's getting at him. And unfortunately, I can confirm that Fletcher has not been in this fight at all. So, God, that's awful, I have to admit. I think that's one reason why book 4 tends to be more my favourite, not just because of like the themes and stuff, but I think it's just bits and bobs like that which does make me confirm that book 4 makes it probably less flawed than this one. And not to mention, but in book 5's a close second, that's for sure, because I tend to like climaxes stories the most, especially when it comes to last installments of a massive series. So yeah, I guess you could have seen that Fletcher's shooting more arrows, or maybe trying to see if any living more falls around. But even then, I think we definitely needed a visual of his involvement. But anyway, let's move on. So you have Nicole, just a laser gun, but it's still helping. Probably could use her grenades, but oh well. And you have and you have a personal suit. If you remember in book 3, where he's instead of always fighting like a maniac, he can do other helpful things as well. And so this is him getting the amulet, and he could say, where's the details? Well, it's meant to be on the opposite side, but I could have drawn to show him what the other side looks like, because it's meant to be like clicked onto him, a bit like it's like I don't know, I can't think of an object, where I guess like a Lego brick, yeah. Let's go with that. Yeah, so it's a very tough Lego brick on Zone 4, and now it's been pulled off. Yeah, I think of it as that. So yeah, probably my favourite shot in this book. I think so. Yeah, I like the streams as well. It definitely adds to the detail of the setting as well. It doesn't have, because I think that's the reason why the settings have been a tad minimal sometimes, because it's just drawing your eyes to other bits and bobs. Because when you look at here, I have to admit, there's too many details. Like there's the mist on line work there, there's the jabbing off there, and there's the quills which are thinner, but this is thin and this is thin. So yeah, it's just I'd never wanted to overwhelm the audience with too many visuals, but if anything, it's probably gone the opposite way where it's too simplified. Anyway, we're nearly done. Let's go. And so yeah, if you're wondering, wait, from what Diana's doing right now, does that mean like the successors or to him? Well, clearly not, because the Legion have shown to work together to get this off, and yeah, you could, Dion was meant to just have a moment of rest almost, as the Legion had the last go against Zynthor. But I think even then, Dion could, from a distance, could have been shooting at him from behind, or in the horizon. I think that could have been better. But I have had at least planned for Dion to at least be trying to get himself up while the Legion are primarily attacking Zynthor. But now the amulet is off, and thanks to our rather quick discussion, and after probably a few more bits of fighting, Dion, is like, this guy's not going down easily. We definitely need to use whatever necessary to definitely sort him out once and for all. And so, thanks to prior setup, where Dion is getting, not a lot, the racers aren't appreciating him anymore after his missing all of those, no thanks to being shut down. Sorry. That's made him miss a load of cases, and Mechador's damage has outdone what Dion has been able to do. And not to mention, I should have put this in as well, like the Mechador's damage was meant to be so far gone, it was gone to a point where Dion doesn't know how to help. I think that was hinted in book 4 with the whale creatures with the floating islands. I think it was said then that the help was far gone at a point where Dion couldn't do much, because he's not a first aider like Nicole. Maybe he is, but he's the kind of hero which suits like stopping a building from falling. But if the building's already fallen, then there's not much you can do aside from tidying. But Dion's meant to be on the move, trying to save as many lives. But if so many have been gone and there's too much destruction, then there's nothing much he can do. But by what he does later on, this is where he is able to make up for that in a massive way, and it does become quite a satisfying moment. And it does. Yeah, spoiler, he does die. And if you're wondering, but the stars stay. Well, I think I have put in my books that the elements are the most powerful type of energy ever, and the star wouldn't have been able to work with that. Even if there's no stars around, I have planned that that Dion would have analysed that the star wouldn't have helped, and he would have wanted to go anyway, because Nitro should no longer be weaponized anymore. Now the Legion, are on top of the world, and they probably get hold of other Legion members, and so it's almost a reason for him to have a decent leave of the entire series. And it's also a bit silly of me to say, it was planned, but it's not in the book. It's just like when I used to like do simple things like walking, I used to keep running these scenes through my head. And I was thinking, that and that. But I think because of the rushing of how these books were created, that means these details were left out, such as, Dion able to analyse his own body, that it's too far gone at a point where Star wouldn't help. But anyway, so let's get to the scene itself, so you can see that the damage is really getting to Dion. I would have liked him to be a bit more beaten, especially what it looked like in book 4 after what Morphine did to him. But I think this is still neat enough, and he can even see enough despite his light skin. And I managed to use all the elements to take down Zynthor. There's fire, water, and cubes. No sign of air, maybe aside from, because if Forza is meant to be like air and gravity and stuff, then maybe you could argue that the pressure is making the armor crack. But even then, you could have done with a you know, more of a symbolism of that as well. Because when it comes to moments like this, you want to involve all the abilities in. But yeah, this is how he goes. He's burnt, melted, dismantled all at once. So I thought the batter's death was bad, but no, this definitely takes the cake. Um, so yeah, I think the shot is kind of neat as well. You know, with like the shot fundamentals, you could say. So yeah, let's move on. This shot kind of reminds me of, you know, the two shots I wasn't too keen on when Zami and Apostos were interacting with the cube element and there was just nothing much else to it. I kind of feel the same about this shot here. I think the Legion should have shown like the reactions on the side of the pages or the side of the page, or you know, have a look at Dion from behind maybe. But even then, you still have more floating bubble, which you can still see they're in the same area. You know, showing that this is done almost immediately, and the ground cracking as well, really showing that Dion is using the most powerful form of energy ever, and it's slowly getting to him. So as you'll see later on, Dion has pretty much fixed everything, like all of that destruction and loss of vegetation. Is probably, I don't think he would have. There's this idea of thought like, wait, did Dion resurrect all the species, therefore made the Titrans work all for nothing? I don't know. I think no, not I don't know. It's I don't and then no. That's what I meant. Sorry, I won't say that again. But even then, hearing my voice is nearly done anyway. But yeah, I've had this idea where the Titans do continue their work, and not to mention the idea that the likes of healing and resurrecting races and whatever possibilities the elements have, there would be more access to Zyme 4 once he uses the machine and it's fully embodied into him. But yeah, I think once again that's my head canon. Even if it's pre-planned in my mind, it's not in the book. But anyway, so I do like so as you know, he's trying to use it to reform the entirety of space. You know, it's almost getting to him as well because I don't think it needs to be said. These elements shouldn't be manipulated in this way. They're just there to, they were there to help start the universe at first, considering they embody like the main aspects of the universe. And even if Dion's a good guy, they still don't like it. But this is definitely a worthwhile cost. To make the entire universe better in the cost of the most powerful good guy. And it's a neat reversal as well because instead of this blast firing away and then many races die and probably a couple of worlds that are probably gone along the way, instead it's Dion just making everything almost back the way it was, if not better. All of those brownfield sites that Zyphor wanted to sort out, well, he's probably done them all at once. The entire universe. So yeah, most impressive feat ever. And I remember having tons of different ideas for what the climax would be, and there was one idea where Zyphor created like a massive piece of debris which was going to like drop on the Legion. It's the heaviest object ever, and Dion, has it lift, just keeps it above the air and slowly brings it down because it feels so heavy. Maybe that could have happened considering he was off screen earlier, but anyway, let's move on. So yeah, you can tell by the runtime is either the second longest, if not the longest, of the presentation videos. And I think it's just because as mentioned with the start and ending, there was so much to start off and round up rather. And so yeah, as mentioned earlier, Dion managed to reform the entire race, and these two would have had a nice moment where, because this whole energy, would be coming at them fast, but you probably would see a hint of them. It's probably this massive load of yellow LNG everywhere, and and people are like, oh no, that's Zyphor's doing it, we're about to die. And so, yeah, I think those two definitely, I've imagined them to have like a nice talk. They're both leaders, both are slightly aware of the Legion, not slightly aware, but they've known them for only a little bit. And they've probably accepted that they've tried, but they've got the complete opposite where, because you want to have expected the Legion to help with this. And so, yeah, you have this really nice visual of the energy, reforming the hills and growing the trees. And it's really nice. And I know this is like flawed because Earth didn't look that bad to at first, but at least it definitely looks pretty with what it looks like here now. You have on Carpo here, definitely would like this because of the vegetation. And the President can see that his Earth is back to his former glory. So it's a small moment with side characters, but definitely a nice moment nonetheless. And you can also see that because it's not just Mechajaw, it's the other villains causing all sorts of trouble, but all of that is definitely made up for. So let's move on. So yeah, there'll definitely be an ongoing debate on which death is the saddest, and I think that's either for the survey, but if there's no relevant question for that to answer, then yeah, you could always put on my either Wix site on which death you think is the saddest. And I think despite liking the other ones, I want to say this one is the most because of how much of a cost it has been. Compared to the prior two. And so I keep 5 books in, and I've never stopped these habits and trends with these videos, have I? But yeah, so everyone is around him. We're all sad to see him go. Pasmas and Hairwolf didn't see him much, but from what they've heard, and no, Dion could have saved or helped planets them two are on. So yeah, it's and they'll probably feel sad for the Legion as well because but Arvin would have died as well. In fact, I know Hailwolf and Arvin haven't like shared a moment, but I think that would have been nice for Arvin to be recognised, and even Mike as well. So I think that could have been worthy of a scene as well. But I don't know. I think I just need to amp up the number of pages as I'm fixing the story. But like I said, the novel version I think will do a better job, with making up with the flaws of this. And yeah, I do like the expressions as well. If you're wondering, oh, Jonathan, where's the tears? Where's the exaggeration? And not gonna lie, I know exaggeration is, like a fundamental of animation or illustration, but I personally like to keep things simple. So I don't want to have like massive cartoon baby faces you would see on Rugrats or whatever. I kind of find that a bit too cheesy. So to have it, nice and subtly, like that subtly, is that I don't know. But yeah, I just feel that just seems to jive better. It's just yeah, it's not too, oh, look at this expression. I just think it's too needy because there are certain forms of animation I like. Where they go for more of that approach compared to other types of animation or illustration where they over exaggerate bits and bobs. That is, that is a me thing. That is a debate for another time. But yeah, and also not to mention, with Fetcher giving the others space and stuff, you can see that there. And he's probably been like, oh, it is sad to hear and go, but what I could do with doing is sorting out all these elements. And if anything, I can always help this for you. Sorry, more headcanon. But yeah, it is definitely said in the book that Dion was dropped off to, is it the sun or a sun? A sun, oh yeah, of course, yeah, because any universe would have multiple suns because, they're definitely useful. And yeah, and as Zemion and Dion has said, yeah, they don't want Nitra to be weaponized anymore because, yeah, we've seen how much damage Nitra has done with Orpheon and Retron's failed defenses. So yeah, definitely a wise decision that's rounded off. So you'll start to see like more story elements starting to started to round up and end, and yeah, just make it quite an interesting experience after reading the past few pages. It's 180 overall, or 185 if counting the posters. So yeah, I don't know where we're on now. Oh, my throat's slowly going as well. It's just because of how long this video was. But yeah, let's make it quick for everyone. But yeah, as mentioned, the elements are put in safe spots. You'll see that later. Let's move on. I think looking at this scene, oh, actually, no, I think this is definitely needed instead of another off-screen event because, as you can tell, there has been scenes that I've been choosing more so than others. But in this one, you could say, oh, it's more Legion grieving. But yeah, thanks to Fetcher's advice about prioritising people compared to your own goals. So with the, yeah, not sure if, is it the satellites? I hope, that would be the case if I've written it down now. Oh dear, another case of headcanon. I really hope there's no more because it's at the ending. And so yeah, so the Legion have got this mindset where they're like, oh, we have saved the universe, but we've done probably far too many mistakes at a point where the public might not accept us, and yeah, they'll probably just go on their own separate ways afterwards, knowing that the universe is good because of them. And they have sent this message to say, oh, Zine 4 is definitely down. This is us Legion. We've been trying to help you all this time. We apologise for Torridon, Wreckage, but even then, we won't be like celebrities if if you don't want us to be. And so yeah, I think that's probably a more interesting part of the theme of this story because can be cases where I tell you what, a good example, the code breakers of World War II, they weren't allowed to reveal anything, all of their achievements during the war because of various reasons. But it would have been nice for them to be like, oh, I definitely, helped during World War II and stuff. It is unfortunate that that legacy won't be known until later. Or, no, there could have been some code breakers who probably wanted a massive goal or outcome afterwards, only to be like, hey, your goal has to be kept secret. Oh, sorry, I got a phone call. Oh, sorry about that, the only phone call interruption. But yeah, as I was saying, so yeah, there would have been like code breakers or any other similar um, person where they're like, oh, unfortunately you can't have this goal because, this has to be kept secret or this can't be done because of a much bigger price that needs to be done. So, yeah, really interesting, definitely interesting theme for your kids. Well, not for just kids in general, just it's like another way to say, don't over overestimate your expectations because you just don't know what's going to happen. And so yeah, I think that's really interesting detail. But I would say it looks like, although this is probably yet another automaton created by cubes, and and this one has sofas, compared to the book one where it had like two gadget making sections and probably a different console as well. But yeah, they're all still sad. But what happens when they come to Earth? And so yeah, it turns out from the writing, everything is all fine. All of these people are like, oh yes, Legion, you're definitely good now. Now you've done this, you're definitely forgiven, and we'd definitely like to put you up, at celebrity status again. And yeah, I know that people are duplicated and probably some headcanon, but regardless, it looks like everyone seems to be fine. And I think the honesty of the Legion, willing to not accept or have their apology accepted, I think that does make people go like, oh, okay, that's definitely make them more worthy. And so yeah, you have three of the main Legion members alongside two temporary ones who witness this moment. And I think it was said elsewhere that it might have been Fletcher or maybe the Legion later who bring the Titans back home. I swear I've written that somewhere, but yeah, at least you had that moment. Um, oh my god, Dion did bring back races from extinction. Oh no, that's made the Titans work redundant. Oh, well, even then, Titan could still have the role of setting the races back with the knowledge and stuff. And then probably would still be pleased because they'll be massively waiting and stuff. And, still probably might be other extinct races to bring back, like mammoths, see if they would work on another planet. Anyway, yeah, let's move on. Yeah, not gonna lie, my throat's hurting. Yeah, this is definitely, so as mentioned, by versions of this story, and I've always wanted the outcome to be like this because none of these Legion members are going to be around forever. Then there is the idea of with like spin-offs and stuff and sequels where they have Legion members come from the future, but at least it has an origin and a starting point and a really significant event to tie the Legion with. Yeah, sorry, I just lost my words. We'll move on. But yeah, so let's break it down. So um, you have Dion, who's horizontal there. You have A Titaran, so let's make that Vondor, I would imagine. There's Mike, the founder. There's Arvin, Pod, Zamu, Nicole, Hellwolf, and the Pasnos. I'll be interested if how many names you lot have remembered, because not gonna lie, there's not a lot of names that are made up in, because there's still places and vehicles which still need their names, but in the main grand scheme of things, I think that's okay. But yeah, had the Legion present it as well. This is like a monument, and even I know there's no aliens in the crowd, but I think this is still early days. But as said here, it does, it does become a lot more commutative, which has its pros and cons to make every planet like Nahash 2. But I think I spelled that wrong. Honestly, I've already done it, spelled it as Nahash 2. Nahash 2 sounds better. Yeah, so despite the pros and cons, yeah, it'll be really nice for all the races to get on instead of them all hiding in fear. And yeah, so the president presenting that is quite nice. This is something he's been meddling about, but the Legion are definitely the best way to protect everyone. And I think what's also interesting about the history in Book 3 is that because if you remember Book 3, it's not only the celebrity status that's foreshadowed, but the history being this alien community as well and being pleased with the Legion, almost quite foreshadowing, even if it was a smaller scale at first in Book 3. So yeah, definitely interested in that. Yeah, this is the same crowd from Book 2 as well. It had to be duplicated. Yeah, just quickly done, unfortunately. So yeah, let's move on. Okay, so as shown by the overtime part, you can see that this is where it's almost like a 1 year later kind of scenario. But yeah, so we're definitely getting to the more conclusive parts about the story. So firstly, so as you notice in this page and the following page, it mainly covers where each element is at, which is a pretty nice detail considering that's what the stories have been almost centering around. And it also helps round up other loose ends, mainly in the last page. That's not relevant to the elements, but even then, so you can see that this race is all back, and they're going to be protecting the cube element, as shown in Book 5. And despite Dion's massive living goal, no, well, yeah, like the massive jump in bringing back extinct races, the Titans worker is paying off well, and you get to see Arvin again, which is really nice. And this is probably Carpo and Vondo, probably being on the more on the same page in terms of like the Legion and being happy about everything else. Thanks to his help and the Legion overall. And so yeah, we'll go on to the next one. And then you also have Forza, which is back in the vault. And if you're wondering, wait, hang on, they put it in the same spot. Do they not have better alternatives? And yeah, so at least Fletcher's race is back, and the Titans will definitely be bringing their the numbers back up, as well as probably any of excellent races, which probably will be keen to defend. And not only is his fault in the ground this time, which I guess it's learning from a prior mistake, even if they shouldn't have done it beforehand. But the key is that hopefully the end of the story mentions this. So the Legion's reign does go across the universe essentially at a point where they've become a super protecting force, like the Fletchers, the Titrans, the Sochers, the Morphils, and probably other races. They'll be far more inspired to, pretty much all help one another at a point where peace has definitely reached a high level. And even as the at the end of the story, it still says, crime will still be a thing, which is the most realistic way to suggest, because, just because a massive conflict is done, it doesn't mean that everything is solved. There will be problems. And for those who are probably more of a fan of this story, they'll be like, I definitely would like to see the aftermath of this. And yeah, I think I do have a good few ideas on where to take that. So yeah, balls are in there, and you also have Pod and his new type of Morphils. And yeah, I have a black one, which is, pretty neat detail. This is Vibra, which is kept safe. And yeah, pretty much leads these now into like a new era of protection. And yeah, and these are creatures that are liked as well. And it's also said that Pod and the Legion are definitely on good terms now. And also just to clarify, if you like, wait, a sequel, does that mean like all of the elements will get breached? And as much as I like to expand on them, won't see another Zionthor element collecting threat again, I reassure you that I have been, I do want to do something. I want to expand on the elements, but not putting them together, because that will make the achievements of these characters quite redundant. And you probably can see by now, like, being honest with the flaws of the story, and there are bits I have forgotten to put in, and there is still, problems every now and again. But, at least, I think from my knowledge and how honest I've been, definitely a storyteller with good intentions. I don't want to create like a false image and pretend it's perfect, despite being my magnum opus. Sorry. So yeah, I think it's just the best way to look at it. But yeah, let's go on to the final page. Alright, we have made it to the final page. So this is the city we would have seen in book 2. It's almost like reminiscent on how at the end of book 2 the Legion were getting celebrity status, and they've kind of got that back. You can also see past Noss and Hailwolf, they'll be more active now the troubles are out of the way. Pods will still be with the Legion, even if he's going to be more involved with the Morphils. And I think it would have been nice for an alien crowd to be around, or probably draw more Legion members, but once again, time got in the way. And you also have Zami, who has earned all the kind of attention he's wanted. I think it would have been better if he was with the Legion instead of being on top. It's just a way to show that he's like the main character, but yeah, that does go against a couple of bits and bobs. But it still shows the Legion being successful, which is really good, considering everything. And this is a Beastosaurus. That is a creature I have come up with years ago. There has been an updated drawing of it on my Instagram, but for those who've seen my first ever showreel, you might have seen a Beastosaurus drawing, which I've done when I was little, but then it was digitised by an acquaintance of an acquaintance, and yeah, it was pretty cool. And so it's just another minor meta thing to to apply to the story. For those who don't know what meta means, it's just almost like acknowledging the real world, essentially. So, for instance, this is a creature I've come up with when I was little, and being involved in this grand story of mine. Yeah, I guess it means a good few bits and bobs to me, more so than the audience. But I think as you know that, you'll probably get more of an idea. It's almost like when you have a breakdown video of a film, and when there's like these little details of what they mean and how they could be tied to the director, that will make you go, oh, okay. So I just wanted to do that. And yeah, it looks like they've only knocked down the creature instead of sorting them out, which probably goes to show that, yeah, the tasks, whatever they face, will be tricky, but definitely won't be reaching the heights as it used to. And another favourite aspect of mine, the last word of the book is literally haphazard. Because the first ever word is Earth, to which, Earth is like the main location, it's where the Legion is born. And yeah, and I think by mentioning it, it's almost giving like grand scope, because it's going to be set on Earth, will it be set on other planets? So yeah, like the first and last word almost matter when it comes to a story, or just like even like the first sentence or paragraph at least. So yeah, it's just an indication that like the trouble will be continuing, but definitely not as bad as it used to be. For those who don't know what haphazard means, it's basically another word for randomness or chaos, to which we have seen, and not to mention, the Legion, they're some of the most mixed beings. Compared to like other media, because in other media you at least have different types of creatures, but like the same collective, or most of the heroes of a team tend to be all human, with some being more grander than others. But with this one, you have human, one alien, an animal alien, an alien that can turn to another one. It's you can tell it's a lot more varied, and hence why I think this one is definitely more unique. I think that's all I can say for this one. So yeah, I won't keep you waiting too long. Thank you if yeah, well done for reaching the very end. I know this probably wasn't the easiest set of videos to watch, and yeah, I will say another apology. I can't apologise enough for any errors that have remained unfixed. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed it. With going deep into the story, some behind the scenes bits and bobs, and seeing how I view my story and how I approach my work in general. And as I've stated a couple of times, there's still plenty of other content you can watch, like my popular compilations, my animations, public music playlist, which will have songs you've never heard of, but which I think are underrated. And then you also have, and you have these books as well. And I will be creating, there will still be stuff released, a couple more things, but nothing else. But yeah, as mentioned, I will be going on a small break when the time comes. But for those who are a fan, I definitely will be going to get on to creating. But in terms of being active on any of my media, that will take time. Or the likes of my Twitter, I could do with using it as a updating platform for those who are interested. Because yeah, I've currently got 96 subscribers, to which well, as I record this, so yeah, definitely pleased with that. So yeah, this year has been really good for me, not just these books, but what else has been achieved on YouTube and whatever social media they have come across with this series. So yeah, and I hope you have enjoyed the books on their own as well, whether it's before or after watching it. And please leave any comments or whatever in the Wix sites if you do want to state anything. But remember, anything crude will be cut off because there's a swearing ban with the comment section. And there is my survey as well, which I would definitely would like some results, please. To see what elements would have been better than others. Oh, I've got something stuck. Anyway, I won't hold you for long. Thank you for watching, and yeah, enjoy your day.